Kevin had been kidnapped by Gwen Archer and taken to her estate. She wanted him to give her a pill like the one he'd sold to her brother Dominic. Kevin broke his restraint, and after some struggling and heavy negotiating, he agreed to use his skills to make her a pill. Using common ingredients that were in Gwen's home, Kevin knew that he could concoct the correct herbal medicine for her. "This is going to take a while," Kevin said as he adjusted the temperature of the burner. It had to be just right. Before his training with the Night King, he needed nearly 2 hours to refine something like this, but now he could do it in less than half an hour. The moment the bowl shattered, a rich fragrance filled the entire room and 4 pills rolled onto the table. "You know how to concoct pills?" Gwen said in surprise as she looked at Kevin. "This is the first pill that I ever made. When I started, I didn't really know what it was, but you could call it the power pill." Kevin smiled as he picked up 3 of the pills and held them in his hand. "Give me one," Gwen said excitedly. Her eyes were filled with envy. She wanted to snatch all the pills from Kevin's palm. "Do you want it that badly?" Kevin said with a smile as he put the 3 pills into his mouth at the same time and started to chew. At his current level of development, a power pill wouldn't be much of use to him. Even if he ate them like candy, they wouldn't have much of an effect. "Why did you take them?" Gwen asked angrily as she stomped her feet like a little kid. However, she didn't dare to grab the 4th pill. She was afraid that Kevin would swallow that one too. "Even though I know how to prepare power pills, I can't give them away to others that easily." Kevin sneered as he picked up the last one and held it in his hand. "I'm sorry, Kevin. I shouldn't have sent someone to bring you here against your will. Please forgive me," Gwen begged him in desperation. "Please have pity on me and give me this last pill. I'll pay you whatever you want." "It's not about the money," Kevin explained. "The problem is that I really don't like getting hit on the head." "Then how about we even the score?" Gwen said as she picked up the knife that had fallen to the floor earlier and offered it to Kevin by the handle, with the blade pointing at her. "Forget it. You're too weak right now. I was afraid that I'd hurt you," Kevin replied as he casually tossed her the pill. Kevin knew very well that he was on Gwen's turf. The place was filled with guards who would give their lives for her. If he didn't give her the pill, he'd have a heck of a time getting out of there unharmed. It was one thing to fight one-on-one with somebody, but it was entirely different to deal with dozens of people at once. The best that he could hope for was to get out alive. Gwen swallowed the pill without any hesitation at all. This was just a start. She had bigger plans in mind. "Can I leave now?" Kevin asked coolly. Gwen didn't answer his question. Instead, she sat down on the sofa and gestured for him to take a seat too. "What are you doing?" Kevin asked curiously. He had no idea where this was going. "Kevin, I want to ask you to teach me herbal medicine," Gwen said directly. "You want to learn to be an apothecary?" Kevin asked in surprise. When he got over the shock, he frowned and thought to himself, "Did she just say that she wants me to teach her? If she learned this skill, what could happen in the future?" "Yes, I sincerely want you to be my teacher," she quickly replied. "But I'm not prepared to take on a student right now, and it would take a lot of effort." "Just forget about it," Kevin explained. He had some misgivings and decided it was better to turn her down. "I'm not afraid to make the effort. As long as I can learn how to concoct pills, you can ask me to do anything," Gwen pleaded as she leaned towards Kevin hopefully. Seeing her like this, Kevin was starting to have a hard time saying no. "I'll follow whatever instructions you have and I'll offer you all my support in the future," she told him. Gwen had only one thought. If she could learn to be an apothecary, the sky would be the limit. Not only would she be able to improve herself by leaps and bounds, but she could move past any plateaus and get an advantage on all of her competition. After all, there were a lot of other rich and powerful people trying to do the same thing. "Give me some time to think about it," Kevin said reluctantly. "Really? So you're willing to think about it?" Gwen asked excitedly. "Don't get too excited. I just said I'd think about it," Kevin replied cautiously. "That's okay. I'm sure you'll say yes." Gwen replied as she stood up from the couch with a big smile on her face. "Can I leave now?" Kevin asked grumpily. "Of course you can, Professor," Gwen said very sincerely. Kevin looked at Gwen thoughtfully before walking out the door. The reason he said he'd consider her request instead of rejecting it outright was that he suddenly had an idea. If he could unite all the rich and powerful families in Chicago and build his own power base, he could turn the entire city into his personal territory, a kind of empire. Wouldn't that help him solve all his problems once and for all? This was about more than just herbal medicine. Not long after he left Gwen's estate, Kevin made his way back town. As he was walking toward his building, he suddenly ducked into an alley. "Must have been hard for you to follow me all the way here," Kevin exclaimed as he leaned against the wall. However, when he finished speaking, nobody answered him and he couldn't see anyone following him. "Why don't you just show yourself?" Kevin said grouchily. Then he heard some movement and a shadowy figure suddenly stepped out from the darkness. The man looked ordinary, but Kevin sensed something very dangerous about him. "Who are you?" Kevin asked as his body tensed up. The Night King had told him this might happen. He should always be on the alert and not get careless. "My wife has asked me to extend an invitation to you," the man said very frostily. The way he looked at Kevin was extremely cold, as if he had no feelings at all. "It's getting late. Why don't we do this another day?" Kevin replied bluntly. "It's not up to you," the man said as he started to move toward Kevin. He took a step forward and reached for Kevin's neck. Sensing just how dangerous this man was, Kevin quickly retreated. He knew that his only chance of escape was to run out into the street. Kevin had actually felt that he was being followed from the moment he stepped out of Gwen Archer's mansion. That was why he walked into the alley. He wanted to lure the guy out of hiding, but he didn't expect him to be so strong. Although Kevin moved quickly, the man was even faster, and he appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. "There's no use resisting," the man sneered as he grabbed Kevin's collar. His grip was like iron, and no matter how hard Kevin tried, he couldn't budge him. "Get lost," Kevin yelled as he threw a powerful punch. The man abruptly let go of Kevin's shirt and slid his palm along his wrist. Then he deftly redirected his punch toward the wall. Kevin's fist smashed into the bricks. When he pulled his arm back, he felt something sting him in the neck. In less than 3 seconds, Kevin closed his eyes and fell to the ground. "I don't care how strong he's gotten. He obviously doesn't have enough combat experience," the man said as he lifted Kevin up from the ground and put him on his shoulder. He hurried to a long black sedan that was waiting nearby. When Kevin woke up, he was in a daze. As he tried to stand up, he found that he'd been tied up and left on the floor. "What the hell is this?" he thought to himself. "Not again." Being tied up twice in one day made Kevin feel very upset. "Where am I this time?" Kevin wondered as he looked around the room, trying to find a clue to his location. Soon he spotted a sign in the hallway. Written in red and black letters, he saw the words, "The Alliance." "I always wondered what the Alliance headquarters looked like," Kevin said to himself with a slight smirk. Ever since he'd met Marshall, Kevin had been finding out as much as he could about the Alliance. Their headquarters was in a wooded area not too far from Chicago. It was originally supposed to be a housing development, but for some unknown reason, the construction had stopped midway, and the Alliance ended up turning it into their center of operations. They were into a lot of activities, both criminal and legitimate, and this was a good arrangement for them. As far as anyone knew, it was just private land where nobody dared to trespass. Just then, the man who had tied Kevin up walked into the room. "You woke up pretty quickly from that knockout cocktail." Kevin frowned slightly when he heard this. He knew from his studies that this concoction didn't have any lethal properties, but it could render someone unconscious in under 10 seconds if they weren't strong enough. "Since you're awake, you should come with me to see my wife," the man said as he quickly undid all of the ropes that had been tied around Kevin's wrists and ankles. "Who are you? Why did you bring me here?" Kevin asked cautiously. "You'll find out soon enough," the man said as he led Kevin outside and headed for one of the other buildings in the woods. Kevin stretched his numb hands and feet before following him. He was glad to be freed from the ropes, but he knew that he wasn't free to leave. Since this was the Alliance headquarters, there would naturally be many experts around. He knew that he didn't yet have the skill to deal with them, so he was stuck here for now. Along the way, Kevin was stunned by the surrounding scenery. There were all kinds of exotic herbs and flowers growing on both sides of the road. Imagine the medicines I could make with all of this, Kevin thought to himself. He decided that he would pick some of these herbs before he left. It was worth the risk. About 10 minutes later, Kevin was stunned when they stepped into a clearing. No one would have thought that the Alliance would erect such a magnificent building in the middle of the woods. As he followed the man up the stairs and into the building, Kevin saw some very dangerous people. They gave him some really bad vibes. As he entered the main hall, Kevin saw a woman sitting in an enormous chair. It wasn't a throne, but it had the same feel. She was wearing a light purple dress with a very high collar that partially obscured her face. There were dozens of people standing in a semicircle around her. Kevin assumed that they were among the Alliance's elite, their very best members. While Kevin was looking at the woman, someone said firmly to him, "Well, what are you waiting for? Step up and meet the director." Kevin felt a hand push him forward until he was standing in front of her. "Good afternoon, Director," Kevin greeted her anxiously. He knew that in the Alliance, the executive director's wife often stood in for him and had a comparable rank. They were in the habit of using titles that made their organization sound more like a legitimate business. It was obviously a big deal for Kevin to be brought in for this meeting, but he was well aware that he had absolutely no rank in this room. "Are you Kevin Williams?" the director asked in a very powerful and dignified tone that you couldn't help but respect. "Yes, I am," Kevin replied as he nodded his head. "Do you know why I invited you here?" she asked him. "To tell you the truth, I have no idea," Kevin answered honestly. But inside he was thinking, invited? I was followed, drugged, and tied up. Kevin was also worried about something else. In his training, he'd learned a lot of the Alliance's secret recipes and techniques. It would be really bad for him if these people ever found out. "You don't have to be so reserved. I called you here to ask you something very important," the director said quietly. "Did you save a few women from the myriads recently?" Kevin was stunned when he heard this. Of course he remembered doing that, but he didn't know why the director of the Alliance would be interested in it. "Did you know who these women were? Why did you let them go for no reason?" she asked plainly. "To tell you the truth, they were in real trouble. I let them go because I knew they were in the Sideros Alliance, which is connected to you, and I was concerned with their safety." "Did something happen to them after they left?" Kevin asked in confusion. "No, they're fine. But you may not have known that they were candidates for promotion to the position of administrator in the Alliance. They're very important to us," the director explained. "That's why I had you brought here. I'd like to reward you," she said pleasantly. Kevin's face lit up when he heard her say this. He knew that in the Alliance they had a director, several administrators, and 4 kings. The title of king was a holdover from the days before they tried to sound more businesslike. They used to be called kingpins. His mentor, the Night King, was one of them, but Kevin was probably the only one in the room who had ever seen his face. Strangely enough, the people in these positions rarely use their given names with anyone, just their titles. Kevin had never expected his act of kindness to the women to have had such important consequences.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.